welcome back to the Whatnots review show number 208. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa, how's it going?
It's going well. How was your weekend?
My weekend has been pretty good, fairly uneventful. My girlfriend and I are still making our way through Lost. We're in the middle of season 3. They just discovered the barracks where they live. So there you go.
Has Sawyer already obtained the fish biscuit?
Oh, yes. Yeah. He has obtained the fish biscuit. Absolutely. That's a great one. What about you? How's your weekend been?
I watched Jurassic Park yesterday to get ready for Jurassic World Dominion. You don't need to remember the full name. It's just the new one, the new dinosaur.
New Jurassic Park, yeah.
Right.
Indeed.
News to no one. Jurassic Park, still very good.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, today, here on the Whatnots review show, in case you didn't know, each week we have a brand new story to talk about. Could be a movie, could be a comic book, could be a manga, could be all sorts of things. We read it, we watch it, we do what we have to do, come back here and talk about it. This week, we're talking about a manga that I've been interested in for a while, simply because of its name.
Yes.
Its name is so ridiculous that I just like, one day, I was like, I have to pitch this one day here on the podcast. And we ended up picking it. And that manga is That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime.
You know, happens to us all.
Does, right? Yeah. Happens to the best of us. Yeah, this is one that I had seen in Comixology for a while. And like I said, the name caught my eye because it's just so ridiculous. That time I got reincarnated as a slime.
And it's not just the concept of being reincarnated as a slime, but the fact that whoever the protagonist is speaking of this event from much later on. And it's like one incident in whatever their life becomes.
Yeah. Have they gotten reincarnated as other things down the road? Who knows? But yeah, so this week we read the first 5 volumes. Which is, I think, a perfect chunk of like, here's like the starting bit of that manga. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this, actually. I was surprised. I, generally speaking, am not a huge fan of fantasy stuff. I don't mind it, but it's not my favorite genre. Let's put it that way. So I was expecting it to be like, all right, it's going to be some fantasy stuff. And I don't know, it seems like a ridiculous name. It's going to be kind of weird and wacky. And I don't know if it's really going to be for me. But I think I was pleasantly surprised. It was better than I thought it would be. So yeah, I had a blast reading these 5 volumes. And interestingly enough, I didn't know this, but it started out as like an online novel. Is where this story got started, and then it's been adapted into like an actual like published book. It's been adapted into an anime and a manga, and there's been spin-off mangas and books and all sorts of stuff. So seems to be a pretty popular one.
Yeah, I can see why. I had a lot of fun reading it. The reason why I picked it initially is that you told me this was about a 36-year-old man, like just an office worker who died and got reincarnated as a slime. And I didn't know that part of it. I liked that that's who our protagonist was. I was expecting it to be a teen. So a lot of anime and manga I've encountered is very youth focused. And I like that this was just an adult man. So that's why I picked it. And so I had that surprise right off the bat. And this is a narrative it's a lot of fun. It's got really great character designs, really interesting magic systems, and a a good amount of emotional depth to it. I wouldn't call it a heavy book or like a super emotionally compelling book, but it's very charming. There's
absolutely.
The way that our main character keeps picking up friends and allies in situations where you wouldn't expect him to. That's the real delight of the series.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, as we kind of alluded to, this story is about a 37-year-old who is just kind of an everyday office worker, dead-end job, just kind of a nobody who gets stabbed to death, seemingly on accident. All of that stuff, he jumps in front of someone who has a knife and ends up dying. But yeah, then as the title suggests, gets reincarnated as a slime, which if you guys are video game fans and you are familiar with all sorts of Japanese RPGs, they have these slime monsters that are like the really low level, like don't even pay attention when you're fighting them, just they're pushovers. And that's what this guy reincarnates as, a slime. And he very quickly it just has to kind of figure out what's happening and all of this stuff, and he finds himself kind of in this fantasy world very similar to a video game, but it has its own happenings and all that stuff, and he just kind of goes about his merry way, and as you said, just kind of accrues these allies and just starts building this city like out in the middle of this forest. And it seems like of the 5 volumes that we read, that's like a good like first that's a good like first story arc, but it also very much felt like set up for stuff that's happening down the road here. It seems like there's some kind of like demon lords that are running around that world and stuff like that. But yeah, we follow this slime who everyone just kind of takes as a useless slime at first, but he ends up being really powerful in ways that he's unaware of, but then also not like conceited with. And that's the thing, because he wants to be helpful. Like he's just a good old nice swell guy. Right.
Yeah, he's got for a slime orb, he's got a surprisingly steady head on his shoulders. Like he's very practical. When he first does get reincarnated as a slime, he like has no senses at first. He can just sort of, and you're watching this like orb roll around a dark page trying to like figure out these new physical sensations and eventually learn like, all right, this is how I can sort of see. This is how I can sort of move. I'm adjusting to this, and he just proceeds to adjust and figure things out and try and make things work. He's a very pragmatic slime.
For sure. Indeed. And yeah, and we meet all sorts of characters along the way. We meet orcs and goblins and all sorts of things. There's big old demon kings and all sorts of fantasy stuff. I had a blast writing these, and I know that manga tends to read faster than like American comics and stuff like that. But yeah, these ones went by very fast, and I held my attention as I was writing them. I never felt like I was lost or didn't know where I was, stuff like that. So I had a good time reading this. That time I got reincarnated as a slime. Is there any other kind of thing that we maybe missed in terms of plot synopsis or spoiler-free thoughts that you want to share?
I don't think so. I think we'll get into it in the spoiler section.
Cool. we will get into that in just a sec. We'll take a quick break for some housekeeping, and then we'll be right back. We put a lot of hard work into the shows that we make, and yes, we make multiple different shows here at The Whatnots, and we'd love it if you check them all out. You can find out more information on our website at thewhatnots.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in The Whatnots, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. If you want to support what we do here at The Whatnots, patreon.com/thewhatnots is the best place to do that. You can support us for as little as $1 a month. You can get all kinds of exclusive content at the $3 tier. You can also get a shout out and a thank you on all of our shows at the $5 tier. You can support us on Twitch by subscribing to our channel at twitch.tv/thewhatnots, and we would love to have you all join us for our live streams and talk with us in the chat. And lastly, we have merch. If you'd like to grab yourself a shirt or a sweatshirt or a mug or something else, go to thewhatnots.com/store to pick up some merch today. And we are back. A big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for supporting us. It means a ton. Thank you. Cool things that we've been up to here at The Whatnots. It would normally be E3 season if you're a video game fan. E3 is not happening, but Summer Game Fest is happening. So there's still a bunch of showcases and conferences and new game announcements and trailers and all that stuff. And we will be discussing all of that on Crossplay. Sony kicked it off this week with a State of Play. That's their little presentations that they do with all their new game announcements and trailers and stuff like that. So we got to discuss the new Final Fantasy 16 and all of that. It was good. It was fun. On the captain's log, we actually have not recorded this week's one yet. We are recording it after we record this one. But it should be up before this one goes live. It's confusing. Whatever. We are recording the captain's log today. I've still been checking out all of the hard Mountain Dew flavors. I will
this
still
is the
be
season finale.
Season finale of hard Mountain Dew on the captain's log. We have all of that stuff. I do have to give a shout out that at the end of the month on the captain's log, we will have our annual trivia night. So if you guys want to come check that out and watch as some of us from the Whatnots challenge one another with some trivia. I think that should be a lot of fun. But yeah, then on the Reactor Core, we just recorded our reactions to the first half of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Numbers 1 through 3 are already out, and myself and Ignacio, you guys might know from Crossplay, we did our reactions to that. I'm sure you will see us do our reactions once the whole show is out, so we can get that second half covered. And shortly down the road here, this week, in fact, Miss Marvel comes out.
Yes.
So I know we will be discussing and talking about all of that stuff. But yeah, be on the lookout for all of that stuff. I'm super excited. But that is it for housekeeping, which means it is time to get into spoilers. There we go. Okay, spoiler territory for that time I got reincarnated as a slime. Looks like you were just about to say something. You got something on the tip of your tongue there, Melissa.
I think I want to start with the magic system. I think the magic system in these books is really interesting.
Let's do it.
So first off, our slime, I forget his civilian name as a businessman in Japan, but he's like out with one of his coworkers who wants to like introduce him to his new fiance. And then like he gets stabbed by Hitoru Mikami. Thank you. He gets stabbed by a mugger, and and as he's dying, he like kind of makes jokes to himself about like, Oh boy, I hope that, in my next life, I get to be somebody who can't die from being stabbed. And he's a virgin. He's like, man, if I had one more chance at life, I would just like devour those ladies, in like a cool, consensual, sexy way. I would devour those ladies. Like he makes some sort of wordplay. And then there's like this great cosmic voice speaking to him that says, "We'll reincarnate you as a form that cannot be killed by stabbing." And he's like, "What? What do you mean? We'll reincarnate you with the power devourer." And he's like, "What's that?" And then he wakes up as a slime orb, just this perfect little bubble of a man rolling around. And he got reincarnated in forms that suited his final wishes. And we're still not clear on it. I think it's referred to as like the great voice or the great knowledge or something like that. Like there's some sort of cosmic force.
Word of the worlds.
Yes. There's some sort of cosmic force that allowed that to happen, but we don't know why him. Why did this happen to him? And he has not encountered anybody else who this has happened to. He finds one other person who is he finds one other person from Japan, but she was like summoned there. Like she never died. She was living in Japan and then got taken to this fantasy realm. And I also like that that's part of it, that as soon as he gets reincarnated here, he's like, he's a slime orb, but he's like, I still identify as a Japanese person. I might never see another Japanese person again.
The funny thing is he references, I believe it's Dragon Quest video game. And he says, and she recognizes it and is like, "Wait, you're from Japan? Like what? What? Who?"
I did like that a lot. But yeah, I like that setup of just his final offhand wishes are turned into his new physical form. And the devourer power is when he can slurps over something, he can kind of like eat it and then get its powers. So, and one of the first creatures he encounters is this incredible Smaug-like dragon who he befriends. And he will like eat the dragon, get the dragon's powers, and then this dragon sort of has the power to like live inside him.
Yeah.
And the dragon's like, "You got to have a new fantasy realm name. And I think we're family. I think we should have the same last name. You and I, we're married now. You will be Rimuru Tempest, and I'm Veldora Tempest, the Storm Dragon. Eat me and carry me around inside of you, please." And then you don't see Veldora again. But at the end of every volume, there's a prose section of this is what Veldora is seeing through Rimuru's eyes.
Now, I have to say, I didn't really read those prose sections. I read the first one that was in there. But once I kind of realized it was just the same things we had read in manga, I was just like, all right, I don't really need to read this. But I'm also kind of wondering, because I didn't look up the like online version of the novel. I'm wondering if that is the bit of the online novel, or
I don't know.
Not, if that is that just an extra thing for the manga or not. But yeah, that stuff is in there, which I thought was neat.
I also just skimmed them, but I did really admire that they were there and that Veldora knows more about magic than Rimuru does. So Rimuru will do something. He encounters all these goblins, and the goblins are like, "We don't have names. Somebody has to give us names." And he's like, "Okay, I'll call you Gobta and Goblo." And gives them all these it's gob names. And then he like passes out and he doesn't know what that was. And then Veldora's like, Rimuru doesn't know that if you name something, you've created this strong magic bond with that creature. And the more you name people, it like drains your own energy. So you will like go into the sleep mode.
Yeah. So it has some interesting perspective and some interesting tidbits in there, but it's basically the exact same thing that you just read in comic form, in manga form. But yeah, so he has this power devourer, and he eats plants and drinks water, and then eventually consumes this dragon, which absorbs the powers. And then he has this like library of powers inside him that he can use, a lot of which he doesn't even really know he has, or he didn't really know at first that because he ate these plants, those are actually like healing herbs.
Yes.
And mixed with the water, it makes a healing potion, and because it's been sitting in there for so long or something, it's super powerful. Now, and he has so much of this that he basically has like an unlimited supply. So,
you just excrete healing potion, and he's like, I didn't know I could do that. I was just trying to eat a leaf.
Right. Yeah, and so he has these he has this kind of air about him that makes him seem like he's all powerful. But in a way that he doesn't know it. Or once he does start to kind of figure it out, he realizes, well, I have more powers than I know. So I don't even really know what powers I do have. And the ones I do know I have, I've never really like tested the limits of my powers and stuff like that. But he's also not like trying to go out there and kill things. Like he wants to be nice, he wants to be friendly and all that stuff, so he's not trying to hurt people or destroy someone's home or stuff like that. So he in an odd way, not in a way that he's necessarily choosing per se, but he's very humble and very meek as a result of this stuff. But and then as he eats more things and gets more powers, he eventually realizes that he can combine these powers to kind of create newer, stronger powers. And just within the first 5, he has so many different magic things that it's you can't even know how much he has there. It's not like, okay, he has these 5 powers and that's it. It's like, no, he has like 5,000 something. I don't even know what they are. Yeah.
And they can be combined in different ways, and he can talk to this like mystical cosmic voice who's sort of like his Jarvis or his Friday or whatever, who's informing him on, hey, did you know you can combine these things together and it has this effect?
So to be clear on that bit, there's 2 different voices, right? There's the word of the worlds, which is like the grand cosmic voice, and then he has a power called Great Sage.
Yes, that's what
it
is.
Is also like you said, just his like personal assistant that can like speak with him in his consciousness and help be like, well, in this situation, Firaga would be a good move to use and stuff like that. So
and that was another one of the things he thought about as he was dying. There's like some old adage or myth, or maybe this is part of game lore, like video game or anime or manga lore that he's pulling from as he dies, that like there are monks who will live celibate lives and will die and will be like reincarnated as great sages. And he's like, well, I'm a 36-year-old virgin, so I'd better be one heck of a sage now that I'm dying. We only see his life back on Earth for a little bit, but it does give us this interesting setup where he is out with this younger coworker. The coworker views him as the senpai. He's got the upper hand professionally, but it's the younger guy who is like handsome and has this beautiful, sweet new fiance. So like he's older, he's got more knowledge, more power ostensibly at the job, but like he has nothing else going for him. And when he gets reincarnated, he doesn't like think back to his life on Earth a lot. He doesn't say like, oh no, my parents will miss me, or who will feed my cat or whatever. He seems to really take this reincarnation as, okay, this is my life now. I get this blank slate. What did I want to be on Earth that I like never really got to be? And he's he does have this humility to him, which is one of the character's strengths, and I think why so many of these other supporting characters take up with him. Like, they really admire him. He's not the guy who wants to be a leader. He's the guy who can be a leader and like accepts that other people put him into that position. Yeah. Like, he's very trustworthy. He's very considerate of others, and he gets to be not just somebody who is like logistically, yeah, that guy's my superior at the office, but who's somebody who others really do look up to.
For sure. I want to go back to the naming convention thing, because names in magic systems are always really interesting to me. There's a lot of kind of magic systems out there that it is, especially when you get into more like demonic stuff. Like if you know someone's true name, then you hold power over them. And in a similar way, this is kind of giving someone a name for the first time, and that holds a certain power over them too. And it causes the creature that gets named, if and when they get named, they evolve. Not necessarily instantaneously, but like right in the within the next like day or two, they evolve, and it could be that can mean all sorts of things, right? It could be that they get bigger and taller and stronger and more defined, and they don't look so childlike, and they look like a man or a woman. Or it could be that they de-age, or that they now have 2 horns instead of 1, or they grow horns. And I liked that a lot. I thought that was fascinating.
I did love that Rimuru was never sure what effect it was going to have. It will level that creature up in some way, but you're right. It's not like you always look older, or you always look younger, or you always get buffer, or your body always changes in one certain way versus another. It is different for each type of creature that he encounters.
Yeah, and within that, too, it's not always the same, because for the goblins, most of them did get like more muscles, and they all that stuff. And then there's Gobta, and he's just like, wait, Gobta looks the same. Like, why didn't he evolve? And then he's just this like childlike goblin who just on the outside just appears dumber than a bag of rocks. But maybe secretly he's like a genius is like how he evolved.
At the end of every chapter in these books, there's like a page with just like one little doodle on it. And the doodle after that chapter is the drawing of Gobta, who still looks like this cutesy little child goblin, and it's labeled like Gobta still looks the same. And he's got a word bubble that says, "My evolution was more of a spiritual thing."
and like he's not literally like a genius, like book smart. Like, well, now I am the great sage, and I know how to, like, he still just is himself, but just has this kind of like innate ability to be able to do whatever it is that he needs to get done there. And whether that's on purpose or because of like a new skill that he learned there, because he does learn a unique skill that none of the other goblins can seem to really master. But some of these things, like when he's fighting the lizard prince dude guy, like that seems very purposeful. He is skilled. He knows what he's doing. But then when they go to see the dwarves, where the like he's just like accidentally like getting in trouble and like stuff like he just see like, but he still accomplishes what they need to accomplish, but it just in a more like Rube Goldbergian like somehow he made it happen. Like, we don't know. Maybe he's secretly a genius.
I like how many different characters Rimuru has around him, and they all serve different roles. They all have a valuable part of his retinue, and I do love that the premise is you expect this to be a guy who's reincarnated as a slime and panics, hates it, wants to get back to Earth, wants to go back to human life, wants to be something who's not a slime. And he's just gonna like fumble through this like medieval land with these power structures. He's gonna upset a king or something. And some of that stuff happens, but he gets reincarnated. He immediately like adjusts himself. He figures it out, and he keeps collecting friends when you would expect him to collect enemies. So many times he turns an enemy into a friend or at least an ally.
Yeah. Yeah, in just the most strange ways too, and not in someone who's just like, yeah, he's cool, like he's a friend. It's like, no, like, I pledge my loyalty to you. Like, I will follow you wherever you go. All that stuff, and yeah, he kind of becomes, without them really saying it, he's kind of like the de facto king of this forest.
Yes.
At the end of these 5 volumes, he becomes the chancellor of the forest. That is like the official title that they give him. But yeah, he's kind of amassing this power, and that hasn't really been dealt with yet in the series of what that means for the world at large. But to go back to what you said about you might think that he would just be like, I miss being a human. I want to go back to my old life. I hate it here. I thought if not that, then it also would have been, he maybe would have been a little bit more cocky and like, well, hey, I've played Dragon Quest before. I played Final Fantasy before. I know how this works. I can do all of this stuff. I got this. I know what. I'm gonna rule the world. You're a king? Not anymore. Listen to slime number 1. Right?
And I think his life as a gamer or somebody who like read or watched fantasy-based stories, that does give him a leg up in this world. He does sort of know what he's supposed to do. He knows how a leader should behave, but you're right. He has no ego about this. He's just trying to, he's like, I think I know what I'm supposed to do. He's very humble. He's very practical about things. Not cocky at all.
Practical to a fault. In the sense that when he's naming stuff, especially at the end when they get the like 150,000 orcs that are still alive there, he's naming them like goal F1, goal F2, goal F3, right? It's just like,
it's like, come on, dude. You're a male from the mountain tribe of orcs. Okay, so you will be mountain M1, female mountain F1.
Right. And I was thinking in my head what I would do if I had to name this many people.
And like your lamp, your table, your apple juice.
Yeah, right. But like I feel like I would divide them up into like, okay, first of all, divide into your tribes. Divide male and female or whatever your gender system is. Yeah. And then I think I might find some other kind of subset to divide them all up into. Or I might even be like, all right, I'm going to come up with like 150 names in my head here. Divide everyone up into like 150 random groups. Group 1, you're all John. Group 2, you're all Steve. Group 3, you're all Sally, right? and that way, like just like do that stuff instead of like your F1, your F2, your M1, your M2.
Right. And we haven't yet seen how the orcs, I think they're like, they pledge their loyalty to Rimuru. They will accept their names, but we haven't seen like one of them talk to the other one like, Mountain F2, how's it going, bud?
Wait, are you Mountain F3 or F63? But yeah, I liked the naming stuff. That was fascinating. But then at the same time, I guess I also don't know why he had to do it to all of them.
None of them had names. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but then like when you get down to it, what really is the purpose of naming every single one of them?
Well, I guess it levels them up and then they are stronger and they could be an army or resources for him if he wanted, or they could just be stronger on their own. Like some of the orcs could then go off and set up their own settlement and they would more safely, more confidently. If any foes came to fight them, they could defend themselves more easily.
Yeah, like I get that, but like I guess I'm thinking of just like how much time it would take and all that. Like, why can't they just live among you and help build without being leveled up? Like, there's strength in numbers. Like, you're in this giant city now, and everyone is like of this same alliance. Like, there's at least for the time being, there's not really gonna be anyone that's coming after you right now. You're pretty safe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
He's just that nice of a guy. Like if somebody asks him to do something, he's like, okay, all right. I do wonder, I would like to see how this progresses. If he can like outsource the naming, can a named creature then, who can name somebody and who can't?
Somehow?
Right. Or like, can he assign his demon secretary to help name them? Can she do it now?
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the like interesting magic system that they can combine powers, and he eats different things. So there is one thing that I do want to talk about spinning off that.
Yeah.
He eventually gets the power to shapeshift.
Yes.
And there's in one of the volumes, it's like volume 3, he ends up kind of devouring this girl, this woman. This is the one that was transported to the realm from Japan. She was summoned there, but she was the wrong person. That wasn't who they were trying to get. And then she got bonded with the spirit of Ifrit, I believe.
Yes.
And yeah, just like there was a whole story about, like she's too powerful for her own good, so she doesn't like doing this, and then they separate them, but she's dying and all this stuff. So he like kind of as her last wish does a similar thing of like, hey, you can devour me, and in that I will live through you, and my memory and all that stuff will be carried on. Which is a nice thing. But yeah, he has the power to shapeshift, and then often shapeshifts into like a younger version of that woman.
Yeah.
And then just kind of stays for the most part as her.
Fascinating to me. He wakes up. He does these things and he's not sure what any of the repercussions are going to be. And he'll do something so magic that it'll like knock him out. And then he'll wake up and he's like in a different form or something has changed. And he wakes up and he is this like child who like in the face like looks like a younger version of that woman. And he finds out that he is this sexless child, not male, not female, not intersex, but like sexless entirely.
The typical like, wait, I can be a girl, right? And then is like, there's nothing there.
It seems like, I don't know if maybe he could shapeshift. I forget that part, but he does try shapeshifting into a babe, into a hunk.
I think at one point he shapeshifts into one of the dire wolves.
Yeah.
Too.
It's fascinating that he is reincarnated as just this sort of like raw human, just like a sexless child that could evolve into being anything could be anything. He has the power to be anything. But when he's not the slime orb, he stays in that like 10-year-old child mode fairly often and is like, I'm going to need new clothes. Like, will you guys help me make new clothes? And then all these women try and like dress him up in these frilly outfits.
Yeah.
It is interesting that this is a man who was like a virgin in his 30s, regrets as he dies that like he never got laid. He gets reincarnated as a slime, and then he gets that ability to have a human form. He could have sex with a woman now, and he just doesn't.
Yeah, I mean he has those orc, or no, not the orc, the kaijin. I think that's how you say it. They're all just fawning over him. But I don't think I like that power that he can like transform into a human and then it basically just stays there. It kind of defeats the purpose of being a slime, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And in the volumes itself, like in the back of the book where they have that like those just one little jodel thing in the back there, it's often like, sorry, there wasn't much slime in this one. And it does that for like 2 or 3 in a row. And I'm just like, well, why? Like,
yeah,
why is this a thing then?
I do love the slime form. It is surprisingly expressive. It's sort of got these indentations, like almost like eyebrows on it. You get a lot out of the slime form. It's nice to look at. I imagine it's very easy to draw. And to have it replaced by this other design, which is very cute, like the child Rimuru becomes very cute. I love that this in his human form, like when you can see an actual expression on his face, he always looks bemused. He always looks puzzled. He always looks like he's thinking. I liked being able to like really see how Rimuru is thinking and how Rimuru is feeling, and that's what it is. But it is surprising that this has come up so early into the narrative. When you imagine that would be a longer struggle for Rimuru, is missing his human form, missing like the ability to taste anything. He can take things in, but he can't like taste anything. Right. You know, missing the touch, being able to like really touch another person besides just sort of like rolling into their lap. But yeah, to have it happen so early and then not have a huge effect on the story was a little puzzling.
Yeah. And I feel like it's a cheap way out. But like you do bring up a good point to be able to see him emote and do that stuff. Like with the slime, you can kind of get some of it, but it's not the same. Like he doesn't have a full human face that we can really connect with and be like, oh, he's surprised, or oh, he's scared, or oh, right. But if he is in a human form, we can at least connect with that because it's something we recognize. So I get that and I appreciate that. I think the other thing I appreciate is also it just an interesting thing they don't really talk about in there, except for the fact that they do mention he's a virgin and all that stuff.
Yeah.
If I was I wished I could have been with all the ladies and devour all of that. It's interesting that he does end up going around as like a 10-year-old girl.
Yes.
Not in a like a pedophile way, but I'm more in it. Like the way I read that is a more like repressed sexuality of like
maybe
maybe he never really had a relationship in his previous life because maybe he didn't feel like he aligned specifically with the normal binaries of he should be with a woman. Maybe he was into cross dressing and we just don't know. Or
we know nothing about his human life.
Way deep down and maybe never explored it and all that stuff. But they don't talk about that, at least in these first 5 volumes. And I thought that was interesting because it is like this subconscious manifestation of who he wants to be.
Yeah, so, it is interesting that like this is the default human form that he wakes up in, and he learns that he can change it, but he chooses to stay in that default almost as like I was wondering if it's like, I don't know how any of this magic works. Let me trust it. If this is the form I woke up in, let me stay like this for a while and feel it out and see if this means something. Or maybe he wonders if this is, I don't remember the name of the woman who died and that he devoured. Right. Maybe he's like, in honor of her, like I took in her power, I took in her life energy. I woke up looking like a younger version of her. Maybe in her honor, I will continue to live like this for a while.
Yeah. It's just like,
I do want to say,
oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that for a 36-year-old virgin, he's less pervy than I would have guessed. This is a far less pervy book than like when we read Fairy Tale.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Slime orb, and he does like when like a busty lady hugs him, but he like his thought process does not go farther than that. It's not like a busty lady hugs him or cuddles him, and he's like
to not get distracted and stuff like that.
But it's like
the secretary woman, the ogre, when they first meet, she like flips over him and like she has like full view like of her chest, like inches away from his face. And he's like, whoa, wait, don't get distracted.
Right. When he's like being hugged by them, he doesn't wish like, oh, I wish I could do anything more than just be next to boobs. It seems like maybe he's got that now, and he's like, I am happy to live here for a while. I just boobs touch me. Cool. I'm happy. And the women are like so happy to like have this slime orb on their lap.
His first boob.
right. It's not even with his own hands.
With his own slime.
He has no hands. But they love to like have him on their lap and cuddle him. And I like that this was something that like, boobs just flopped straight on there. But I was thinking like the women seem like they were really enjoying this. Like they like to be the one who gets to like have Lord Rimuru in their lap.
Cute and cuddly and right.
And I was thinking like that, if it's kind of a visual joke / eye candy to have like the big boobs propped up on the slime orb. But I was thinking that probably feels very good for that lady to like have the support of the slime orb. Like that's probably good for your posture, good for your back. Maybe it's like sort of a weighted blanket effect to have this. I don't know how heavy he is, but I was looking at it and I'm like, I bet the women are also getting a lot out of this experience, and I'm happy for them.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. It has enough of that. Like, I don't think fan service is the right word, but what you would kind of imagine as fans harvest of like, oh yeah, here's the busty babe, the hot sexy busty babe that has some skimpy clothes on or stuff like that, or is in a suit and is still like very sexy and right.
I want to say that I love that too, that he has this demon lady who takes on as his secretary and then wears like a human secretary outfit.
Business suit, yeah.
Right, in the midst of all this medieval wear, and it's never really explained, but I love it.
The only way they explain it is like because of the horns on the ogres, is they can't wear normal clothes that you pull over their head because their horn will puncture it and tear it up. So they have to wear stuff that like folds over the
they have to wear like button-up shirts and like kimonos. Yeah,
it's like the traditional Japanese outfits or like business suits.
Right. I also like that Rimuru gets this mask from this woman who died. This is the mask that was very important to her that he carries around and wears sometimes. And there's like one of those like end of the volume kind of silly 4-panel comics where he's like, I'm going into battle. Hold my mask, and he gives it to his secretary, and she tries to put it on, but it just bumps against her horn.
Yeah.
I do want to say also, again, I will have to Google this and find that woman's name, but she's set up like she's going to be a love interest, and then she isn't. And I think that choice is fascinating. That I think Rimuru maybe gets some sort of like he gets his fortune told, I think, by some woman at one of the parties in the dwarf city. And she's like, oh, you're going to meet somebody very special who's going to have a major impact on your life. Yes, your fated one. And you imagine this is like, this is your true love. And especially her being the only other human from Japan who's ever wound up in this world, you imagine that he will like one day take human form. Or like Shrek, maybe she takes slime form and then they're slimes together. You don't know. You imagine like, oh, that's his true love. This will be sort of a fairy tale romance among everything. And then she dies and he devours her in an honorable way. And like she bequeaths her power to him. And it does make a major change on his life. It is like, you can tell that is part of his destiny to encounter this woman, for them to have this interaction with each other, for her to have this major effect on his life. I think it's very interesting that that's what it is, and it isn't romantic, or never gets a chance to become romantic.
Right. And I mean, and also in a ways too, him kind of devouring them. That's still a strange word. Yeah. Some of the moves were named oddly, I thought. But, him devouring her in that way is them becoming one, in a sense, which is it's a odd marriage of sorts, right? Where they become one being, one soul.
And when he's introduced to this fated one concept, he thinks about other people that maybe he was fated to meet, and he thinks of Veldora the dragon, who like says we should have the same last name, like we're bonded. Like he's almost married to Veldora, sort of.
I mean, Veldora did name him.
Yes,
in this one, so there is that side of things too, and that like their bond, him devouring this dragon, did kind of set everything in motion, because this dragon was a very powerful magical being that had been locked away for decades, and if not centuries. And the fact that this dragon is now gone, like people can kind of sense that, they can feel it, that there's a disturbance in the force.
Yes.
Right. And I find that interesting too. They continually talk about these things. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. The magicules. I don't know.
They're midichlorians.
Right. Yeah, but they're in the atmosphere. They're everywhere. That's what gives people their power, all that stuff. People can kind of sense those things, right? And that's something they don't really get into much in there. Besides, they exist, and that's kind of what magic relies on. But that's it. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting too, that it is like the disappearance of this dragon that is just that everyone is like, whoa, I sense something is different, something is up, like something's happening here. So yeah, it does feel like the story is going in a direction that is like, hey, this will be a really, really cool story once this kind of finally reaches its climax and stuff like that. It feel like, I'm not sure how long this is. I don't know how many volumes there's supposed to be here, but it feels like it will end up being a pretty incredible journey and stuff like that. So
I want to talk about the final act of this little arc that we read in these 5 volumes, which is the battle against the Orc King. Or when he levels up, he's called the Orc Disaster, which I love. I also love that these orcs, they look pig-like. They look like, is it the Gomorian Guard is the Star Wars race? Is Guard is your title. Like that, it's not part of your race. But yeah, I loved that design, a different sort of orc design that I'd seen in fantasy before.
For sure,
and this and Rimmeru's going to battle, like a huge like battle. Like everybody, all the forces are here. We're lined up on the battlefield. This is real Lord of the Rings business against this orc king. And you've learned that the orc king was doing all of this because his people were under like a deadly famine. They had nothing to eat. And he had this power where he could like tear parts of his body off and then they would regenerate. So you see him like tear off his arm and give it to 3 starving kids. And he's like, eat up. You'll grow big and strong. Don't worry. I'll be fine. And he like bestows this power upon his soldiers called like starvation or whatever, where they are constantly hungry. Like they have nourishment, like they can be fed, but they feel hungry. And that feeling of hunger drives them to like devour their enemies in a more literal sense and then like get their powers. It's sort of this dark mirror to Rimmeru's powers where they can't just like devour something and have its powers, but like they're driven to do so in exchange for what they get out of this. In exchange for the power they gain, they're constantly starving, but they won't die, which is why the Orc King is like, I will do this to my people so that they can live. And so me and my band of soldiers will go out there and like get resources so that we can feed all the people, feed all the little kids so I can stop cutting my arm off. And he refuses to lose to Rimmeru because he knows he carries so much shame for what he's done and what he did that he knew was necessary. And he's like, if I am gone, that burden will be passed to my people. I do not want this to fall on them. I do not want them to have to live under my legacy. I bear this burden. I will not lose. And Rimmeru's like, you will lose. I am going to win this. In like a very understanding, empathetic way. He's like, you must lose. I will win. I will devour you. I will devour your powers. I will eat your sins. I will take the burden. If anybody's mad at any orc, they are mad at me. They come to me with their grievances. I will make sure that your people are viewed as innocent. I take this burden from you. And there's this beautiful, like, almost brings a tear to your eye shot of like the Orc King in his final, almost like these visions like flashing before his eyes as he dies. He's like passed out on this like barren ground where we saw him feeding the children earlier, and he cups in his hand like one tiny little flower that's growing out of the barren ground.
Yeah.
And that was really surprising. And like, that's a moment, not everything in the book is on that level, but the fact that it can get to that level was really impressive.
That's a thing. Like I think these first 5 volumes start to plant the seeds for some of those emotional stories, but we really haven't gotten there yet. And I think that the origin story of the Orc King and the Orc disaster is a good example of the one that got the farthest, maybe. Because we know that the ogres were victims of the orc disaster, the Orc King, all that stuff. But they also have this kind of emotional story to them there. But we know that there is more to their story. We know like all of the kind of friends and allies that he gets. You can tell they have more to their story than we know right now. And I think just being in a fantasy land, there is going to be all kinds of politics and stuff like that of like, oh, well, when King so-and-so was in charge, the goblins fought for him and blah, 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 and all that. But we see this very emotional story when Rimmeru is defeating the orc disaster of just like, I had to do what I had to do to survive. Like, I didn't do this because I was evil or all that stuff. However, the stuff that I had to do ended up being really bad. And I inflicted that on my people. Yeah. And they have now become an infliction on so many other people. And I hate that, but it's allowed them to survive. It's allowed them to live. And he does have this very emotional moment of just finally not giving up. That's not the right word, but just stopping. He is it is the like what happens when the unstoppable force meets the immovable object thing, right? It's kind of like that. And the like number 2 orc that is right there, like recognizes what's happening, and he even has this like really nice, just like, hey, it's time for you to rest. Like you did the thing.
It was a very honorable, restful death. I like that that's how it was portrayed.
Yeah. Pretty cool indeed. I liked it. But yeah, then he has to name 150,000 orcs. All that stuff. But so you mentioned that the orc design, they look like these pig headed creatures, and I don't know if you looked at the translator notes in these books here. So for the orcs, they note that when you first meet them, they are like the kanji symbols used to make it does translate to pig head people. But when he names them and they've evolved, it's now boar's head people. So it is some kind of change in them that they've had there. And I liked that there is, it's a very different kind of fantasy design to an orc that I've never seen before, but I liked it a lot. That was neat. And we also get lizard people, which was neat.
I love the look of the lizard people. I love the look of everything in this series. They get so much out of Rimuru being a slime orb. And then the human design for Rimuru is very cute. Everybody looks distinct.
I'd like to visit. Fantastic.
Yeah, I'd like to visit all these different fantasy creatures and races, and everybody's got cool outfits. It's a very good looking book for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I liked it a lot. Let's see, was there anything else that I really wanted to hit on in this? Not really. I don't think so. I want to know more. Like like 5 volumes is a decent chunk.
Yeah.
And if I had to make a couple complaints, I feel like, maybe the first few volumes felt real slow. They don't really go anywhere. But I think volume 1 had a unique challenge, which I was okay with. But like, the challenge is like, well, how do you get used to your surroundings as a slime who can't see, who can't smell, who can't hear, all that stuff? So there is this challenge of just figuring out your surroundings, right? And so I enjoyed that. But as a whole, like volumes 1 through 3 felt like nothing happened. Even volumes 1 through 5 as a whole, it was like, I felt like that's the end of volume 1 of like a normal Western comic.
I feel like so much happened, and
you're right. Like there is a lot that happened, but it's all set up. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. But I think it's valuable setup. It is a little repetitive of Rimuru gets into a conflict with a fantasy creature. They are friends. He names them. They are his allies. But I like how often that happened. I like that the story is really establishing that emotional theme of this is a story about friendship, about picking up friends, about understanding people, about being generous, about trying to be a good leader.
Yeah. And then one of my other complaints is not so much a complaint, but a wish is like, now that they've built this village into basically a city. Like at the end of volume 5, you get to see like the bird's eye view.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there's streets and pathways and a big like fountain in the center and all of this.
They make flush toilets.
They sure do. They have all this stuff. I want to know that town. I feel like we don't know the town at all. It's just we know that there is one. We know that construction is happening, but that's it. That's kind of it.
Yeah.
And like I feel like I don't have a sense of place when it comes to that town. I felt like the forest in general, we were kind of around, but it's also just kind of a nondescript fantasy forest where orcs live and triad or
dryads.
Yeah, whatever that thing was there. Yeah, that stuff I didn't have an issue with. We did get a map at the start of, I think, at least volume 3, 4, and 5. It had like a world map and had a list of characters, all that stuff. That stuff is
very
super
helpful.
Yeah,
there are so many supporting characters in this book, and like there is that the list of all of them, or all the major ones in those chapters. I'm still like names would enter my head and they would leave, regrettably. So there's just so many of them.
Mountain M39.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that stuff was super helpful. But then, they've built this town up so much that I'm just like, oh, I don't feel like I know what's happening in this town. Like, I don't, like, it just seems like this big old blind spot. So I hope we get more in this town specifically.
And like with the pace of the narrative after this big battle is finished and we're in this period of growth and rebuilding, maybe that's what volume 6 would be. Maybe you do spend some time visiting everybody in Rimuru's service except Rimuru. Like it's Rimuru's passed out. He named too many orcs. And now we just see like his his dwarven craftsman. We see his demon secretary. We see his big wolf. This is when we get to see the townspeople interact. Like, are you calling each other Lake F99?
That or like now, because the orc disaster is defeated and there was this giant army, like Rimuru is amassing a lot of power very fast.
Yes.
So I'd be interested in seeing the other, like seeing that one king that we got to meet very briefly, to see him kind of come back into the thing, to just kind of send some messengers over to poke around and be like, what's happening over here? Who are you people? What's going on here? Right. Just to see more, like it really feels like Rimuru is now on a world stage rather than just like what's happening within this forest. But is like, okay, what's happening within the surrounding kingdoms? All of that stuff. So that's what I would like to see in future volumes. All that stuff. This was good. This was fun. This makes me want to check out the anime adaptation, which I think as of right now has 2 seasons out. Season 1 aired last year as of recording this. We're in 2022. It ended, I think, in like September of 2021 there. So
it's more recent than I thought.
It's pretty new, yeah. So there you go. Any other kind of last minute final thoughts on that time I got reincarnated as a slime?
I enjoyed it. Yeah, and we read manga for the show maybe a couple times a year. I honestly don't read it in my recreational time outside of the show. But I feel like if you're new to manga and you want one to check out, this was very easy to pick up, especially if you are in like a fantasy headspace. Like if you love Lord of the Rings, if you love these RPG video games, I think this is a neat one to check out, even if this isn't your usual medium. If you're looking for something else in the genre, if you just love slime.
Sure.
Do you love slime?
Are you a fan of Nickelodeon slime? I got the manga for you.
Do you love Slimer? It's different. What if Slimer was a circle? A circle who rolls around.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty good one to get started in if you're new to manga or if you're interested in that stuff. If you are familiar with the JRPGs and all of that good stuff, then yeah, I think there's also a lot in here for you. I know there's a lot of references to that stuff. I know I've mentioned like Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy and all of that stuff. One of the mangas that we read on this show a while back was The Heroic Legend of Arslan, which apparently they make a reference to. It's not exactly one that I would have caught if I had just been rating it, but they do have in the translator notes like, oh, this is supposed to be a reference to Arslan here in that. And I was like, oh, that's neat. Like, now I see it. Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, it has references in there to all sorts of things. So if you are more familiar with that, I think you'll get a kick out of this. But it's not so filled with them that if you're not familiar, you'll be lost. You don't need to know that stuff to pick up on this. So yeah, highly recommended indeed. I know more people are probably going to go out and pick up Fairy Tale and all that stuff since it's probably more popular. But I think this one is better.
Yeah, I will say we did read Fairy Tale a year or two ago. I wasn't wild about it, but I remember the art was pretty good. Very cool costume designs, like unnecessarily skimpy outfits, but at least they were cool looking unnecessarily skimpy outfits. They were at least creative. And I did really like the magic system in that book where like our main witch character we're following doesn't have any inherent powers. She can just summon demons to do things for her. And then like the same demons are shared by all these other magic users. So she has to like work out a schedule for when she has access to them.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what else I want to see? This is my last thought on that time I got reincarnated as a slime. What's up with the slime population? Right? Like, are they now being like, I hear there's this like super powerful slime out there. Maybe we should go pay homage or go check him out. Or like, do they accept him as one of their own? Or do they is like the slime population like, how dare you?
Right. I didn't realize this, but we do not encounter any other slimes in this book.
That's funny. Anyways, let's do a check-in on Bingo here. I'm going to pull it up and do all of this stuff. Come on, Bingo, do your thing. It's loading. Okay, here we go.
Say it with me.
B-I-N-G-O.
Just like a pro.
Yeah. Okay, Bingo, here we are. Villain with a pet? No. Begin human trials? No. Mysterious scar? No.
Right. I've got nothing. Right. I can't believe we've gotten this far into the year and we haven't encountered a ghost.
Was there any like no time for breakfast thing?
No. Nobody runs out with a corner of toast in their mouth.
Interesting. So another trope we could put on our list of potential things for next time. Someone who's a bad cook.
Oh yeah.
Like
that's
that's
solid
cook.
Right.
That'd be an interesting one. No paper pack full of groceries. I've been seeing that in a lot of other shows that I'm watching just in my own spare time, but not in. So again, another kind of boring Bingo update for you.
None. Zero.
This week. Oh, well. Well, there you go. That is Bingo for this week. So let's get on to recommendations. I know we've kind of named a couple just in conversation as we've been talking about this book, but Melissa, if people enjoyed this, what else might they like?
If you want more fish out of water fantasy stories, one of my favorite podcasts is a show called Hello from the Magic Tavern. It's been running for like 6 or 7 years. You might have to like subscribe to the Patreon to get the back catalog, which is worth it. But I think you would also just jump in. It is an improv comedy show where a man named Arnie Niekamp plays himself. And he was a podcaster and game designer in Chicago who fell through a magic portal behind a Burger King into a magical land called Foon. And he's still getting a slight Wi-Fi signal through the portal from the Burger King. And he uses that to upload a podcast that he records every week. His sidekicks are a wizard named Usador, who has like 100 secret names. He's very Gandalfian. And then, in that he's like Gandalf, not in that he's like, I didn't say Gandalfinian. He's not like the late great actor. And he,
James Gandalf. Now I have that image of James Gandalfini playing Gandalf.
Also would have been good, probably.
God, that would have been amazing.
And Chunt the Talking Badger, who's really a shapeshifter who can take any form but prefers to live his life as a badger, and he has 2 buttholes. But yeah, every week it is the 3 of them hanging out in a tavern. Kyle, you would not believe what a major plot point that is. You will forget for a while, and then they'll
a new one.
Right, like that's part of his shapeshifting ability. He's like, I choose to live as a badger, and I choose to live with 2 buttholes. This is my life. These are my choices. I love being me. But yeah, it's the 3 of them hanging out in a tavern in like this magical, silly fantasy world, and every week they interview a different guest. And it's all improv, all really good improv, and they could talk to a princess or a wizard or a talking flower or a mouse that has human strength. It's very silly. But they keep a really good and there's always like some vague threat against a Dark Lord, and then they thought they defeated the Dark Lord. They told everybody they did, but secretly he survived. And then Usador had been telling everybody, it is my wizardly duty to vanquish the Dark Lord, and then when I do that, I will die. And since they told everybody the Dark Lord died, now he has to pretend to be dead and be somebody else. They go so many layers deep in terms of the silliness and the continuity. Like, they keep hold of what their canon is. They don't just wipe the slate clean every episode. So I love a show that forces itself to do that.
Cool.
Yeah, I recommend that. And then if you want something that's kind of the inverse of this, where somebody leaves a fantasy realm and comes to everyday Earth, you could watch The Devil is a Part-Timer, which we watched on episode 86. Yeah. This is an anime about a devil who's escaping from some sort of angelic knight, comes through a portal, gets stuck in modern day Japan, and realizes he doesn't have enough energy, like magic energy, to get back home. So he's like, I just have to make a life here now. And he starts working at a McDonald's.
Or technically at a WickDonald's.
At WickDonald's, yes.
Yeah, because they can't use McDonald's, so it's just a W instead.
Which has given us one of our favorite bingo tropes, the fake fast food brand.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was an interesting one. I was thinking about that one, but I was like, it's not fantasy enough. But yeah, you're right. It is this like weird inverse of that. So that's actually a good point there. So okay, recommendations for me. So of course, the Heroic Legend of Arslan, if you want a more like fantasy oriented manga or show. We read the manga here on the podcast. I don't remember what, let's see, it was Heroic Legend of Arslan was episode 103, so just over 100 episodes ago.
Wow.
We read the first 3 volumes of the Heroic Legend of Arslan. I have seen the first couple seasons of the anime, and that was also very good too. If you want more of like because this doesn't really have the video game aspect, but it has a character who's familiar with that stuff and likens all of his this new world to a video game. That still might be what's happening here. We just don't know. At least we don't know because we only read the first 5.
Yeah.
But if you want more of like character gets trapped in a fantasy video game, of course there's Sword Art Online for a more modern one. I really enjoyed the first season of that. Personally, I did not like where the second season and beyond went. I think there were some really fascinating things that was happening in season 1 that they just dropped and didn't go back to. But I think that would be one to watch or check out. I know a lot of people really like that. If you want maybe a more old school version of that, all the Dot Hack series is out there. Where people get trapped in video games, but this was also like right at the start of the internet and gaming and all that stuff. So it was like, man, we got into cyberspace and all that. but it is this like very fantasy driven world, all of that stuff. So yeah, I would recommend that as well. There you go. That is my recommendations.
All right. Time for pitches.
Yeah.
Kyle, I've got 3 assorted Pride Month pitches for you. Cool. I have got a movie, a TV series, and a mini series from back when TV would have mini series. We've never watched one. There may not be any real difference between an old school TV miniseries and a current streaming limited series, but we could watch and we could discern if there is.
Interesting. Okay.
Pitch number 1 is that miniseries. I think I've pitched this to you before. This is Angels in America. I own it.
Angels in America. Interesting. Okay.
This was a TV miniseries that aired on HBO in, I think, 2003. And it swept the Golden Globes. It was very well received, had a huge all-star cast, and it's based off of a play. And I read the play for a literature class in college, and it's structurally fascinating. The way it plays with space and like reusing its actors, which is something this miniseries does. If you want to see Meryl Streep and then also Meryl Streep covered in makeup trying to be a different character, you've got it. There's so much double casting delight in this.
Interesting. Okay.
Quite a cast. We've got Meryl Streep, Al Pacino. This is the first thing I ever remember seeing Jeffrey Wright in. Mary Louise Parker, Patrick Wilson, many great people.
Okay, cool.
The plot description is, as the AIDS crisis explodes in 1980s America, 2 different patients face different challenges. Plus a look at the social, sexual, and religious implications of the deadly illness. When the play came out, it was subtitled Angels in America, a gay fantasia on national themes. It's about like this, you see her on the cover, this man is near death, and an Emma Thompson angel crashes down from the ceiling to like give him a prophecy. So it is sort of this religious fantasy experience also. It's hard to describe. I think I've tried to like list it as a recommendation before, and I have such strong feelings of it, but I do not know how to describe it to people.
Okay.
So, Angels in America.
I keep saying interesting. That's because I think it's interesting.
Thank you. Pitch number 2. This is a 8-episode TV series. You could also find this on HBO Max. This is a show called Gentleman Jack. It is 1832 in West Yorkshire, England, the cradle of the evolving Industrial Revolution. And a landowner named Anne Lister is determined to save her fated ancestral home, even if it means bucking society's expectations. In addition to reopening the coal mines, a part of Lister's plan is to help her family by marrying well. But she's not going to marry a man.
Where have I heard of this before? Have you mentioned this? on a podcast before?
I don't know if I've pitched it before. Maybe I've mentioned it. It is also the name of a liquor. Like you can get a really high-end Jack Daniels called Gentleman Jack. But here, Gentleman Jack is, I suppose, the nickname for this woman who is more or less the quote-unquote man of her house. And she wears more masculine dress. And she's like, I'm going to get a wife. And the series is about her courting a wife. The first woman anybody's ever heard of doing this, fulfilling this traditional male role in her household and in her society. Okay. And this is based off of a real lady.
Interesting. Fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
And then pitch number 3. I haven't seen Moonlight, the 2016 Academy Award winner for Best Picture. Moonlight.
Yeah.
The plot blurb for this is a young African-American man grapples with his identity and sexuality while experiencing the everyday struggles of childhood, adolescence, and burgeoning adulthood. We see him through 3 periods in his life, played by different actors.
Good stuff. Man, you made this tough.
Our 3 choices are Moonlight, the film, Gentleman Jack, the TV series, Angels in America, the television miniseries. If it's not this one, I want us to watch a miniseries at some point and really dig into what does a miniseries feel like nowadays.
I feel like miniseries and limited series is kind of interchangeable nowadays, but I don't know. God. I haven't seen Moonlight, and I've, of course, heard incredible things, but I'm also really interested in that first one you pitched, Angels in America.
Yes.
So I'm stuck between those 2 right now.
I will say Angels in America, it says it is 6 hours long.
Okay.
And this is on HBO Max.
Gotcha.
I think I couldn't find Moonlight streaming anywhere that didn't label it as premium subscription.
Gotcha. Well, in that case, let's go with Angels in America.
Cool.
Let's do that. Because that one, it especially, I like media that plays with like its structure of like, hey, this is not a typical narrative or typically like the order in which you tell a story or do all that stuff, right? Like I'm interested in that aspect of it. So I think that'll be neat.
I thank you for picking this. I've really been wanting to revisit it because I remember loving this so much when I encountered it in college, and as the decade goes on, I remember the feelings, but I no longer remember the facts. Like, I know how my heart feels when I think about Angels in America, but I don't know how to describe to people what it is or what happens.
Yeah. Well, good to know that there's also a sequel, Angels in the Outfield, which has nothing to do with this one.
Right, we're narrowing in. First, they're in all of America. Then they're specifically in one baseball field helping a little baby Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Right, yeah. Anyways, next week we will be discussing Angels in America. I think that'll be an intriguing one to check out.
Not interesting, but intriguing.
It'll be interesting too. It'll be intriguing. It'll be fascinating. It'll be all of the adjectives. So there you go. That's what we will be up to next week. Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT. And listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities. This is a show where me and my brother Jams talk about weird old kids shows you feel like only you remember. And our most recent episode is on, it is a major like Walt Disney Pictures animated theatrically released film, but it's like one a lot of people forgot about, and it is way weirder than you'd expect. So we are introducing you to Meet the Robinsons.
I remember
you
that
simply must meet them. It is a wild film.
Yep, indeed. I don't remember anything about
Well, you remember that the dinosaur has a big head and little arms.
Right.
He's just not sure how well this plan was thought through.
Exactly. Good stuff. You guys can find me at Yo Kyle Springer on Twitter. And if you want to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts on Twitter. So please go like, share, and subscribe. That would help us out a ton to spread the word and all of that stuff and let people know about our show. But yeah,
Thank you.
That is it for this week. And we will see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.